They say that love is blind, but they're wrong. Love isn't blind. Love is just selectively ignorant. You see the red flags, you see the cracks in the foundation, but you paint over them because you're terrified of the truth. But what happens when the paint peels off? What happens when you realize the person sleeping next to you isn't a partner, but a parasite? My name is Mark. I'm 32 years old. I'm an architect. I spent my life designing structures that are meant to stand the test of time, withstand storms, and keep people safe. But the irony is, I couldn't even see that my own home was built on quicksand. This isn't a story about a breakup. Breakups are sad. Breakups are emotional. No, this is a story about an eviction, a surgical, calculated removal of a tumor from my life. And the best part? She never saw it coming until she was standing on the curb with nothing but a trash bag and a regret she'll carry for the rest of her life. Let me tell you how I destroyed her world without raising my voice a single decibel. It started on a Tuesday that felt like any other. The rain was hammering against the windows of our apartment, my apartment, legally speaking, though she had filled every corner of it with her presence. Scented candles, throw pillows, art prints she bought but I paid for. Her name was Elena. God, even saying her name now leaves a bitter taste in my mouth, like biting into a rotten apple that looks perfect on the outside. We had been together for 2 years, living together for 1, and like every couple, we hit a rough patch. That's the polite term for it. The reality? We were drifting. I was working 60-hour weeks trying to make partner at my firm. She was, well, I thought she was struggling to find herself. That Tuesday evening, she came into the living room. She looked small, fragile. Her eyes were red-rimmed, swollen, like a masterclass in performance art. "Mark," she whispered, her voice trembling just enough to trigger my protective instincts. "It's my mom. She's sick again, really sick." My heart dropped. I knew her mom had health issues. I immediately went into problem-solving mode. "Do you need to go? Do you need money for a ticket? I can drive you?" "No," she said, wiping a tear. "I just need to go be with family. It's about 400 miles away. I'll take the bus. I need time to think, to help out. I'll be gone for a week." I hugged her. I held her tight. I felt her heartbeat against my chest and thought, poor Elena. She's carrying so much. I was such a fool. I packed her bag for her. I made her a sandwich for the road. I kissed her forehead and told her to text me the second she arrived. "I love you," she said as she walked out the door. "I love you too," I replied. The door clicked shut. The apartment fell silent, and for the first time in months, I felt uneasy, not suspicious, just an instinctive itch at the back of my neck. Like when you walk into a room and know something is wrong, but you can't place it. I shook it off. I told myself I was just tired. I didn't know it then, but that door closing was the beginning of the end. 2 days passed. Communication was sparse. "Landed safely," she texted. "Mom is resting. It's hectic here. Can't talk much," came another message a few hours later. I tried to be the supportive boyfriend. I didn't push. I didn't call because I didn't want to disturb a family emergency, but the silence in the apartment started to get loud. On Thursday, the sun finally came out. I decided to take a half day. I needed to clear my head. There's this district downtown, about 40 minutes from where we live. It's trendy, expensive, the kind of place where a coffee costs $8 and the people look like they walked out of a magazine. Not really my scene, but I needed to buy a specific drafting pen from an art supply store down there. I parked my car, I put on my sunglasses, I walked down the bustling street, dodging tourists and business people on lunch breaks. I pulled out my phone to text Elena. "Hey, thinking of you, hope your mom is doing okay." Sent. I looked up from my screen, and then time stopped. You know in movies when the camera zooms in on the character's face while the background zooms out? The vertigo effect? That's exactly what happened to my brain. Across the street, a patio restaurant, Le Jardin. The kind of place you go to celebrate anniversaries. There was a woman in a red dress, a dress I bought for her birthday last year, Elena. My brain tried to reject the image. No, she's 400 miles away. She's sitting by a hospital bed, she's grieving, but it was her. The way she tilted her head back when she laughed, the way she twirled a strand of hair around her finger. She wasn't grieving, she was glowing, and she wasn't alone. Sitting across from her was a guy. Let's call him Julian. I knew Julian. He wasn't a stranger. He was her ex. The one she told me was toxic. The one she blocked on social media 3 months ago because he wouldn't leave her alone. The one she told me not to worry about. Julian looked smug. He was leaning across the table, holding her hand. not in a friendly way, in an intimate, possessive way. He whispered something to her. Elena laughed, a loud, carefree laugh that I hadn't heard in 6 months. She leaned in and kissed him. Right there, in broad daylight, on a Thursday afternoon while I was worrying about her sick mother. My blood turned into liquid nitrogen. My first instinct was violent. I wanted to storm across that street, flip the table, and scream until my throat bled. I wanted to expose them. I wanted a scene. I took a step forward. My fists clenched so hard my nails dug into my palms. But then, I stopped. I'm an architect. I don't smash things with a sledgehammer unless I have a blueprint for what comes next. Chaos is for amateurs. Precision is for professionals. If I confronted them now, what would happen? She would cry. She would make a scene. She would beg. She would come up with some gaslighting excuse like, "We just met to talk for closure," or, "You're crazy. You're imagining things." She would manipulate the situation. She always did. And worse, she was living in my apartment. If I broke up with her right now, on this sidewalk, I'd have to deal with the drama of kicking her out, her crying on my couch, her refusing to leave. It would be weeks of hell. No, I took a deep breath. I stepped back into the shadow of a store awning. I pulled out my phone again, but this time I didn't text. I opened the camera app. Click, Elena and Julian holding hands. Click, Elena kissing Julian's cheek. Click, Julian feeding her a piece of dessert. Click, click, click. 4K video, 60 frames per second. Crystal clear evidence. I recorded for 3 full minutes. I got their faces. I got the date and timestamp. I got the location. I had the weapon. Now I just needed to build the execution chamber. I watched them for another 10 minutes. I watched them pay the bill. Or rather, I watched Julian pay with a black card while Elena looked at him with those doe eyes she used to give me. They stood up. They walked down the street, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. They looked happy. They looked like a couple in love. I lowered my phone. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My heart rate had slowed down to a rhythmic, deadly beat. I turned around and walked back to my car. I didn't go home immediately. I sat in my car for an hour, staring at the steering wheel. The sadness was gone, replaced by something much colder, something much more useful. I remembered something about my lease agreement, a clause I had glanced over when I signed it years ago. Clause 4, Section B, Notice of Termination. I smiled, a cold, humorless smile in the rearview mirror. Elena wanted to play games? Fine. She thought she was on a vacation. No, Elena, you're not on vacation. You're on borrowed time. In my line of work, we have a saying, a structure is only as strong as its weakest joint. Elena was the weak joint, and I was about to dismantle the entire building around her. I didn't go home to confront her. I didn't call her out. Instead, I drove straight to a small diner on Fifth Avenue. Not to eat, but to meet a man named Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henderson was my landlord. He was 70 years old, a Vietnam vet, and a man who appreciated 2 things, punctuality and silence. I had been his perfect tenant for 4 years. I paid early. I fixed my own leaky faucets. I never complained. Elena? Elena once called him at 11 p.m. because she saw a spider. I laid it out for him. Not the emotional sob story. He didn't care about hearts breaking. I gave him the logistics. Mr. Henderson, I said, keeping my voice steady. I'm invoking the 60-day notice clause. I'm moving out. He looked at me over his spectacles. Shame. You're a good kid. Is it the girl? I didn't answer. I just slid my phone across the table. One photo, the one of Elena kissing Julian. Henderson looked at it, then looked at me. He let out a grunt. Never liked her, he muttered. Too loud, walks like an elephant on the hardwood. Here's the deal, I said. She doesn't know. And she cannot know until the very last second. I need you to show the apartment to new tenants only when I give you the green light, when she's out. Henderson cracked a rare smile. It was the smile of a man who enjoyed a bit of old-school justice. You keep the place clean for showings, he said, and I'll make sure she doesn't see a soul until the eviction notice hits her face. We shook hands. The trap was set. Now, I just had to go home and live with the enemy. The hardest part wasn't the planning. It was the acting. 3 days later, Elena came home. I heard the key turn in the lock. My stomach twisted, not with love, but with disgust. But when the door opened, I was standing there. I forced the muscles in my face into a smile, a mask I would wear for the next 6 weeks. Baby, she cried out, dropping her bags and rushing to hug me. She smelled like stale airplane air and something else, sandalwood, Julian's cologne. I hugged her back. My arms felt like lead. "How was it?" I asked. "How's your mom?" She pulled back, looking me dead in the eyes. "Oh, Mark, it was awful. She's so weak. I spent every night at the hospital sleeping in a chair. I'm exhausted." She lied with the ease of breathing. No stutter, no hesitation. If I hadn't seen the truth with my own eyes, I would have believed her. She was good. Terrifyingly good. "I'm so sorry," I said, stroking her hair. "You must be tired. Why don't you take a shower?" Wash him off you, I thought. That night, she tried to initiate sex. This was the test. If I refused too aggressively, she'd get suspicious. If I gave in, I'd lose my self-respect forever. I played the concerned boyfriend card. "Not tonight, babe," I whispered, pulling the blanket up. "You've been through so much trauma with your mom. I don't want to pressure you. Let's just rest." She bought it. She actually looked relieved. Of course she was relieved. She'd probably spent the last 3 days in bed with Julian. For the next month, I became a ghost in my own relationship. Psychologists call it the gray rock method. You make yourself as uninteresting as a rock so the narcissist loses interest in you. I stopped asking about her day. I stopped planning dates. I was polite, functional, and incredibly boring. "How was work?" she'd ask. "Fine," I'd say. "Just blueprints." And it worked perfectly. Because I was boring and distant, she felt justified in seeking excitement elsewhere. She started going out more. "I'm going to yoga," she'd say on a Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Who goes to yoga at 8 p.m. in full makeup? "Have fun," I'd say, not looking up from my laptop. The second the door closed, I was on the phone with Mr. Henderson. "She's gone. You have 2 hours. Send the prospective tenants over." It was a high-stakes game of Russian roulette. While Elena was out cheating on me, strangers were walking through our bedroom, judging the closet space, aren't deciding where they would put their bed. I had to hide her photos. I had to hide her chaotic mess of makeup. I presented the apartment as a bachelor pad, my pad. "When can we move in?" the young couple asked. They looked nice, stable. "First of the month," Henderson said. "Current tenant moves out at midnight on the 31st. I stood in the corner, nodding. Elena was out with Julian, probably complaining about how boring Mark had become. She had no idea that her boring boyfriend was currently selling the roof over her head. We almost got caught. Once, it was 2 weeks before D-Day. Henderson was showing the place to a guy named Mike. Mike was thorough. He was checking the water pressure in the shower. Suddenly, I heard it. The distinct sound of Elena's car alarm chirping outside. She was home early, 3 hours early. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Mr. Henderson," I hissed. "She's here." Henderson's eyes went wide. He grabbed Mike by the arm. "Show's over. Back door. Now." They scrambled out the fire escape just as the front door handle turned. Elena walked in, tossing her keys on the counter. She looked around, sniffing the air. "Mark?" she asked, frowning. "Why does it smell like Old Spice?" I was sitting on the couch, heart racing, pretending to read a book. I looked up, calm as a bomb disposal expert. "I don't smell anything," I said. "Maybe it's the neighbors cooking? Or maybe," I paused, looking at her significantly, "maybe it's stuck to your clothes from wherever you've been?" She froze. The guilt flashed across her face instantly. She assumed she was the one who smelled like a man. "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped and marched into the shower. I exhaled. Crisis averted. But the clock was ticking down, 3 days before the end of the month. Henderson handed me a copy of the new lease. Signed, sealed, deposit paid. The new tenants were moving in on the 1st at 8 a.m. sharp. Legally, this apartment belonged to them in 72 hours. I went home. Elena was watching TV, eating takeout. She looked at me, annoyed. "You've been working late a lot recently." "Just finishing up a big project," I said. "A demolition project." "Whatever," she rolled her eyes. "By the way, my mom is sick again. I might need to go back next weekend." I looked at her, really looked at her. She was planning her next escape with Julian. She was planning to leave me alone in this apartment again. I smiled, a genuine smile this time. "Don't worry, Elena," I said softly. "By next weekend, everything will be completely different, I promise." She didn't hear the threat in my voice. She just heard the compliance. She went back to her show. I went to the bedroom and pulled out my suitcase. It was time to pack, but not for a trip. You'd be surprised how much of a person creates a home. It's not just the furniture. It's the books on the shelf, the whiskeys on the bar cart, the specific way the throw blanket is draped. I had 7 days left. I couldn't just call a moving truck. Not yet. So I started the art of subtraction. Every morning, I left for work with a gym bag, but inside, there were no gym clothes. Monday, my expensive watches and important documents. Tuesday, my collection of vintage vinyl records. Wednesday, my winter coats. I was smuggling my own life out of the apartment, one bag at a time. And Elena? She noticed nothing. Narcissists don't look at the room. They only look at themselves in the mirror. As long as her makeup kit was on the counter and her yoga mat was in the corner, the apartment looked normal to her. To her, the house was full. To me, it was becoming a skeleton. Thursday night, the danger zone. I had removed about 30% of my belongings. The gaps were starting to show. Elena was on the couch, texting Julian, smiling at her screen like a teenager. Suddenly, she looked up. "Babe?" she asked. My heart stopped. Did she notice? "Where's that painting? The abstract one you bought in Seattle?" I didn't blink. I didn't look up from my iPad. "Oh, that," I said, my voice bored. The frame was chipping. I took it to get restored. Figured it was time for a refresh. "Refresh?" she repeated. "That's a good idea. We should redecorate this place soon. Maybe paint the walls sage green." I looked at her. Sage green. She was planning the future decoration of an apartment she would be evicted from in 72 hours. "Sure," I said, a dark smile playing on my lips. "Sage green sounds lovely. We can look at paint swatches next week." Friday morning, the moment I had been praying for. "My mom is worse," Elena said, putting on her sunglasses inside the house. "I have to go back. I might stay until Monday morning." It took everything in me not to burst out laughing. She was giving me the perfect window, a 48-hour head start. "Go," I said, walking her to the door. "Family comes first. Don't worry about the house. I'll take care of everything." I kissed her cheek. It felt cold. "Call me when you get there," I said. "I will," she lied. She walked down the hallway. The elevator doors closed. I waited. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Ding. She was gone. I turned around, walked back into the apartment, and locked the deadbolt. I didn't sit down. I didn't relax. Night I pulled out my phone and dialed. "Mr. Henderson, engage the protocol. Send the crew. 10 a.m. The movers arrived." This wasn't moving. This was an evacuation. "Everything marked with blue tape goes," I commanded. "Everything marked with red tape stays." Blue tape was on my 65-inch TV, my leather sofa, my dining table, my bed frame, my mattress. Red tape? Red tape was on her pile of fashion magazines, her collection of shoes, her drying rack. The apartment was stripped bare, layer by layer. The echo in the room grew louder with every box that left. By 4 p.m., the living room was empty, just hardwood floors and sunlight. By 6 p.m., the bedroom was a void. I stood in the center of the living room. All that was left was a pile in the middle, her clothes, her toiletries, her cheap particle board nightstand. It looked pathetic. Without my furniture to anchor it, her life looked like what it was. Temporary, cluttered, meaningless. Sunday night, 11 p.m. The lease officially expired in 1 hour. Mr. Henderson met me downstairs. He took my keys. "You sure about this, son?" he asked. "You don't want to be here when she walks in?" I looked up at the window of what used to be my home. "No," I said. "The show is better when the director isn't on stage." I had left one final thing for her. Not a note, not a letter. On the kitchen counter, the only surface left in the entire apartment, I had laid out the photos, face up, waiting. I got into my car and drove across the street. I parked in a spot with a perfect view of the building entrance. I reclined the seat. I poured coffee from a thermos, and I waited for the Uber to pull up. The trap was sprung. The cheese was gone. Now I just had to watch the mouse walk in. Midnight was approaching. The street was quiet except for the rhythmic thud-thud of my windshield wipers. I sat there like a sniper waiting for the target to cross the line. My phone was on the dashboard. Silent, my heart rate steady at 65 beats per minute. 11:15 p.m. A gray sedan turned the corner. An Uber. It pulled up to the curb right in front of the building. The back door opened. Out stepped Elena. She looked annoyed. I could tell by the way she slammed the car door. Probably had a fight with Julian. Maybe he didn't want to drive her home, or maybe reality was starting to set in for them too. She dragged her suitcase onto the sidewalk, shivering in the cold. She punched the code into the building's front door. Beep, 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 buzz. She was in. I watched her silhouette move through the glass lobby. She stepped into the elevator. I looked up at the third floor. My floor. Wait for it. Wait for it. The light in apartment 3B flickered on. Now, I couldn't see inside, but I didn't need to. I knew that apartment better than the back of my hand. I knew exactly what she was seeing. She was expecting to walk into a warm home. She was expecting the smell of my cooking, or maybe me sitting on the couch reading a book. Instead, she walked into a void. The echo of her heels on the hardwood floor must have been deafening. Click, clack, click, clack. I saw her shadow pace frantically from the living room to the bedroom, then back to the living room. She was checking for a robbery. Where is the TV? Where is the sofa? Where is... Mark? She wasn't scared yet. She was confused. Denial is the first stage of grief. And she probably thought I took everything to get cleaned. Or maybe I was redecorating as a surprise. Narcissists always think everything is about them. She probably thought I was doing this for her. Until she walked into the kitchen. I saw her shadow stop, frozen. She was looking at the counter, at the photos. Buzz, buzz, buzz. My phone lit up the dark car interior. Elena calling. I let it ring 3 times. Let her panic marinate a little. On the 4th ring, I picked up. Hello, I answered. My voice was calm, casual, like I was ordering a pizza. Mark, she screamed. Her voice was shrill, trembling. Mark, where are you? Where is everything? Did we get robbed? The apartment is empty. I took a sip of my coffee. We didn't get robbed, Elena. I moved out. Silence. Dead silence on the other end. You what? She whispered. What do you mean you moved out? I mean, the lease is in my name. I gave my notice 60 days ago. The movers came on Friday. I don't live there anymore. But where am I supposed to go? She stammered. Mark, stop joking. This isn't funny. Where's the bed? Where are we sleeping tonight? There is no we, Elena, I said, dropping the temperature of my voice to sub-zero. Did you look at the kitchen counter? The counter? What? I heard the rustle of paper over the phone. I waited. 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Then a gasp, a sharp intake of breath that sounded like she had been punched in the gut. You saw? She choked out. I saw everything, I said. Le Jardin, Thursday afternoon. Julian, I saw it all. Mark, wait, I can explain. It's not what it looks like. We were just... Save it, I cut her off. I don't care. But here's what you need to care about. Look at the clock, Elena. It is 11:45 p.m., I told her. My lease expires at midnight. In exactly 15 minutes, that apartment ceases to be my responsibility. And since you are not on the lease, you are technically trespassing. You can't do this, she screamed, the tears starting now. It's midnight. Where am I supposed to go? My stuff is just sitting here on the floor. That sounds like a you problem, I said. Oh, and Elena? Mr. Henderson is on his way up. He needs the keys, and he has a very strict policy about overnight guests who aren't on the contract. I hung up. I didn't block her number yet. I wanted to see the finale. 2 minutes later, I saw Mr. Henderson's shadow in the window. I could see her waving her arms, begging, pleading. Henderson stood there like a statue. He pointed at the door, then he pointed at her pile of clothes. She tried to argue. Henderson pulled out his phone, probably threatening to call the cops. She slumped, her shoulders dropped. The fight went out of her. 12:05 a.m. The front door opened again. Elena walked out. She didn't look like the confident woman in the red dress anymore. She was dragging her suitcase with one hand and clutching a trash bag full of her clothes with the other. Her hairdryer was tucked under her arm. A bottle of shampoo fell out of her bag and rolled into the gutter. She stood on the curb. Homeless, single, exposed. She pulled out her phone, probably calling Julian. I watched her dial. She waited. She paced. She dialed again. No answer. Of course not. Julian doesn't pick up after midnight on a Sunday. He has work in the morning, or maybe another girl. I started my engine. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating her one last time. She looked up, squinting into the light. She recognized my car. She took a step forward, her mouth opening to scream something. But I didn't wait to hear it. I put the car in drive. I didn't rev the engine. I didn't honk. I just drove past her. Slowly. As I passed, I looked her right in the eyes. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just looked. And then I drove into the night. I didn't go to a bar to celebrate. I didn't call my friends to brag. I drove to a hotel, the Four Seasons. I booked a suite with the money I had saved by not taking her on that anniversary trip she wanted. I took a hot shower, I poured a glass of whiskey, and I slept. For the first time in 6 months, I slept without wondering who she was texting. I slept without the weight of a lie pressing down on my chest. When I woke up the next morning, my phone had 47 missed calls, 12 from Elena, 3 from her mom, the sick one, and about 30 from random numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't listen to a single voicemail. I simply pressed select all, delete. Then I went to the carrier settings and changed my number. Just like that, the bridge wasn't just burned, it was vaporized. I cut her off, but in the age of social media, you hear things. A buddy of mine, Dave, ran into her a month later. He told me the details over a beer, and I admit I enjoyed every single word. Remember Julian? The perfect ex-boyfriend with the black card? Turns out Julian wasn't looking for a roommate. He was looking for a playmate. When Elena showed up at his door at 1 a.m. with a suitcase and a sob story about her crazy, abusive ex kicking her out, Julian didn't play the hero. He let her stay for one night. The next morning, he told her he wasn't ready for a commitment and asked her to leave. The irony was poetic. She left me for him, and he left her for his freedom. With no job, she had quit a month prior expecting me to support her. No apartment and no boyfriend. She had only one option left. She had to move back in with her parents. Yes, the same parents she lied about visiting. She had to drag her tail 400 miles away to sleep in her childhood bedroom. She went from dining at Le Jardin to eating her mom's meatloaf in a town with 2 traffic lights. 6 months passed. I got promoted. I designed a library that won a state award. I started dating a woman who actually communicates. Imagine that. Then, on a Tuesday, always a Tuesday, an email popped up in my spam folder. Subject, I miss us. I opened it. It was a wall of text, 3,000 words of excuses. I was confused. Julian meant nothing. You were the love of my life. Can we just get coffee? I'm back in the city. She was trying to hoover me back in, like a vacuum cleaner sucking up dirt. I hovered my mouse over the reply button. For a split second, I thought about writing back. I thought about telling her exactly how pathetic she sounded. I thought about rubbing my success in her face. But then I realized something. Anger is still a connection. Hate is still an emotion. If I replied, even to insult her, I was giving her what she wanted, attention, narcissistic supply. I didn't reply. I deleted the email. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I felt nothing. And nothing is the most powerful revenge of all. Looking back, I don't regret meeting Elena. She taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. She taught me that trust isn't given, it's earned. She taught me that when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Most importantly, she taught me that you don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to fight to win. Sometimes the strongest move you can make is to simply check the lease, pack your bags, and let the trash take itself out. If you are watching this and you feel that gut instinct telling you something is wrong, listen to it. Don't be the nice guy. Be the smart guy. Build your life on a foundation of self-respect. Because unlike a bad girlfriend, self-respect will never leave you empty-handed in the middle of the night.